Recently, Chris Bassitt spoke out on the Chris Rose rotation and exposed the problems within the Blue Jays organization. He also said that he could go on about this subject for 45 minutes. But one of the major problems that Chris Bassitt pointed out was the Blue Jays had nowhere to pivot after Shohei Ohtani. He then came out and clarified what he meant by that, saying it wasn't because they didn't have a plan, but that no other player out there was like Shohei Ohtani. Now, of course, I think we all can agree there is no other player out there like Shohei Ohtani, but there was absolutely players available out there that the Blue Jays could have got that would have made an impact on this team this year. And because the Blue Jays didn't pivot to one of those many other options out there, it is one of the many reasons why the Blue Jays organization continues to fail this team and fail this fan base. But who exactly are those players that the Blue Jays could have pivoted to? What's up, guys, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today. In this one, we're going to go down memory lane and look at who was available other than Shohei Ohtani this past winter and whether or not it would have been a realistic fit for the Toronto Blue Jays. But before we get into it, guys, I encourage you to hit that like button and smash the subscribe button if you enjoy Blue Jays news and content. All right, let's talk about the one clear other superstar that was available this winter, and that is Juan Soto. If you remember this offseason, then you'll know that the Blue Jays were heavily pursuing Juan Soto via trade. And of course, while they were pursuing Juan Soto, they also happened to be pursuing the two-way sensation Shohei Ohtani. And while that was happening, the New York Yankees were able to swoop in and make the trade for Juan Soto. And it was a pretty big trade, guys. For 1 year of Juan Soto, the Yankees sent over Michael King, an everyday breakout starter, 3 potential borderline MLB pitchers, and catcher Kyle Higashioka. Now the question is, could have the Blue Jays beaten that return on Juan Soto? Well, it was clear that the Padres, they needed pitching badly, and they got 4 pitchers in that trade. And looking at the Toronto Blue Jays, well, they didn't have many MLB ready starters that they could afford to send over according to their depth in their system. And most likely they would have to part ways with their top pitching prospects like Barriera and Tiedemann. But you might be thinking, couldn't have the Blue Jays just gone out and signed a free agent starting pitcher to replace whatever they would have lost at a major league level? And I would say, sure, absolutely they could have. But I think the Blue Jays were hesitant to part ways with some of their core starting pitching guys. But at the end of the day, I think Juan Soto, even though it is just 1 year, would have been a massive upgrade over 1 year of a Kevin Kiermaier, which the Blue Jays inevitably got. But at the end of the day, I think the Blue Jays were hesitant to give up some of their farm system depth, which was already lacking, and that was just too much for this Blue Jays organization. Okay, but what about some other options that you would have gotten via free agency so you wouldn't have to trade away your farm system? Well, there were a few options out there that would have been a much better option than a Justin Turner in the middle of the lineup, and a couple of those options were Cody Bellinger and Teoscar Hernandez. Starting with Cody Bellinger, it was so obvious the Blue Jays were pursuing Bellinger through all of those rumors that we've heard in the last 2 off seasons. And it makes sense. He's a lefty bat, he has tons of power, and plays great center field. What more could you want as a Blue Jay? However, the one issue standing between the Blue Jays and signing Cody Bellinger was Scott Boras. And as you know, Scott Boras is an agent that asks for a lot of money. And for the Blue Jays, it looks like they weren't willing to shell out the amount that Cody Bellinger and Boras was asking for. Cody Bellinger ended up signing a 3-year, $80 million deal where 2 of those 3 years are player options for $27.3 million. And for the Blue Jays, that felt like too much of a risk for a guy who was a bit inconsistent in his career. Now, what about Teoscar Hernandez, a former Blue Jay that everybody knows and loves, and we know how much protection he can give to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The Blue Jays did approach the Silver Slugger this offseason, but apparently they couldn't match what Teoscar was asking for. Teoscar Hernandez said this past April that at the beginning they said not to forget about them. Obviously, when we exchanged numbers and years and all of that stuff, they said they could not go that far. That was about it. So instead, Teoscar Hernandez ended up signing a 1-year deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers for $23.5 million. And the Dodgers are absolutely loving this deal as they've gotten 26 home runs out of Hernandez and an OPS of 814. So what was the deal that Teoscar was asking for from the Toronto Blue Jays that they couldn't sign? Well, we'll never know, but if the Blue Jays were willing to shell out a lot of money, $700 million for Ohtani, I'm surprised they wouldn't take a risk on a 1-year deal for Teoscar Hernandez for what? 25 million? Time for a quick shout out to Betway. Betway is the best place to make all of your sports bets on all of your favorite teams. Betway is also in collaboration with iGaming Ontario. Must be 19 years older to participate. And guys, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content. And there are so many other options that I would like to get to in this video, like a Jock Peterson, maybe an early trade for Luis Arias, or hell, even a Jazz Chisholm if you're able to finagle that deal. But the point being is that there is no excuse for this front office. Saying that the Blue Jays had nowhere to pivot after Ohtani is just not true. And it feels like the Blue Jays are one of these two things. Either they were really cheap after the Ohtani stuff, or they were just incompetent of building a winning lineup. And I'd like for you guys to let me know which one you think it is. Either way, this Blue Jays organization has messed up this roster to the point where we're chasing a #1 overall lottery pick 11 months later after being in the wild card series. But guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, go Jays go.